Hi there, I'm Chris Devine, and this is Six String World. I'll be honest, in the years that I've been a guitar player, I've bought a lot of gear. Too much. A lot of it has since moved on to other people, and I've settled on what I have, and it's out of practical necessity, not gluttony or hoarding. But back in the day, I used to put my then ample tax return to treat myself to something special. And usually it wasn't a lot of money, but one year it was just enough to cover the cost of a new guitar. And this was a Reverend Rocco. If you like this channel, please hit subscribe, and the bell icon will also let you know when I put up a new video. And if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button. And if you want to share this, well, there's a button for that as well. Reverend was started by Joe Naylor of Naylor Amps fame. The guitar was kind of a cool design concept. It was a single block of wood in the middle that anchored the neck and the bridge together, and had this plastic edge that had the shape of the body. And on top and the back was a phenolic laminated material, kind of like a countertop or masonite type of thing. It was a laminated system. It had a really neat look to it, and they looked kind of Dan Electro-ish, a little bit more maybe like Art Deco or Streamliner type of approach to it. It was very cool. The Rocco model had two humbuckers, and each had mini toggles to split the pickups, and a three-way blade switch. There were other models that had the same overall design, but the big difference was the pickup configuration. You could get them with P90s, you could get them with Strat style pickups, you could get them with Tele style pickups, and they used a pick guard to mount all the electronics and hardware, so the bodies were pretty much the same. It was kind of like a modular concept. It was very cool. Now, I ordered mine at the time for $690-ish. It was black with a white edge trim, had a rosewood fingerboard, maple neck, locking tuners, and they were really starting to get popular. They were reasonably priced, and they felt great. They were small build, so the attention to detail was fantastic, and they were really getting a lot of attention at the time. When my guitar showed up at the dealer, unfortunately it didn't have the locking tuners, and the dealer says, it'd be okay if I would overlook this. He'd, shave a couple bucks off. And I kind of said, no, this is not really what I wanted. I'll wait for what I've paid for. The one I ordered, I'll when it comes in, I'll pick it up. The owner was a little bummed. But he didn't press the situation, because I don't remember that guitar being in his store for very long anyways. Again, they were really popular, so as soon as they came into the store, they were usually gone fairly quickly. He did, for that one last bit, for a Hail Mary play, he did offer to install some Spurzels or any other particular locking tuner that he happened to have in stock. He said he'd do that for free. I knew the difference between the tuners would mean some extra holes in the back of the headstock, and I didn't really want to deal with any of that. I wanted it from the factory, and again, I held out, and it worked out great for both of us. He moved a guitar that he didn't expect to, and I ended up getting exactly what I wanted. And that comes back to when you do order something from a dealer or any place, and it doesn't arrive as promised, you totally have the right to refuse. I know that every time I would have grabbed that guitar, the fact that it wasn't how I wanted it would probably kind of gnaw away at me. And sometimes I kind of predict it would have probably kind of maybe curtailed my interest in grabbing it more often than not. And, because it would just bum you out every time you grabbed it. You see that it wasn't something that you wanted. It was almost a failure of some sort. So, but anyways, mine came in a few weeks later, and I was beyond pleased. It played great. The neck was fantastic. It was very vintage style neck. It was a nice big C shape. The pickups were phenomenal. And I loved the individual mini toggles that allowed the humbuckers to be split. For clean sounds, I would split them both, and if I wanted a little more spank, I would put the bridge full on and split the neck pickup. And it was always a great option to have. It was also ultra light as well, and it resonated beautifully. I did a recording session at a high-end studio that had some notable clients. My band was in there. I don't know how we got in there, but we did. But the producer there said, hey, we should definitely use one of my Les Paul classics when we start laying down these guitar tracks. It's nice, it's big, it's heavy, and it'll be perfect. And, I said, okay, great. But during the basic tracking, I used the Reverend, and the engineer was pleased, and so was I. I mean, it sounded great. And they said, hey, let's track with what you have. It sounds great. Let's go with that. Later on in the session, the producer showed up and he heard the tracks. He says, aren't you glad, we used those Les Pauls? He's like, those sound fantastic. And the engineer and myself had to kind of chuckle and says, well, it's the Reverend. It wasn't the Les Pauls. And I showed him the guitar and he was totally blown away because at first glance he thought it was just a cheapo Dan Electro. He didn't think of it as this modern guitar with these kind of neat retro stylings. But I ended up having to part ways with it. And why? Unfortunately, it was money. At the time, my band was working on a CD. It was a year or two after that recording session that I did with it. And to cover some of the expenses, I parted ways with it and a few other pieces of gear. But back then I wasn't too bummed though, because I got what I paid for it. And I made that decision to pass on the Reverend to somebody else after I got this PRS back from a repair where I had a partial refret done. And I fell back in love with this instrument. And I'm sure that helped in swaying me. In later years, I did regret parting ways with the Rocco, and by that time, Reverend had moved beyond their weirdo, oddball construction techniques to traditional wood bodies. And I found those older Roccos that like the ones I had, have gone up a lot in value. And I do kind of kick myself in the butt for letting that one pass. But in recent years, I kind of realized what I missed about that Reverend, and it was the switching configuration. The two humbuckers with mini toggles and a three-way switch really gave me plenty of practical, usable options that I loved. Like I said, the clean sound was always great when you combined the various. You could basically get a bass-heavy clean sound, a really nice sparkly clean sound, then you could get one with a little more twang, and then also in the dirty areas, it was great to be able to go into some single coil modes with a little bit of grit, and the pickups really were nice. They opened up nicely, and it sat really well with other instruments in the mix. It was a very natural type of thing. And it was also, that was kind of a setup that not a lot of companies offered at the time. Now back then you could very easily have just modded any guitar with some mini toggles or some push-pull switches, but I didn't think of it. And there also really wasn't a lot of techs in the area that really understood what you were trying to do, because it was just usually it was Strat wiring, Les Paul wiring, nothing really out of the ordinary for a lot of the technicians out that we had in the area. Now, about 5 years ago, I started seeing a lot of manufacturers offering this type of switching set that I mentioned. And PRS then did the Paul's guitar. And the USA Core model really had some great options with that type of pickup switching, but it was a bit pricey. But it did intrigue me. And later on, they did an SE version. And then they did the custom 2408, and they did that as a core model, USA made. And they did an SE custom 2408 SE model, which I happen to have in for review earlier this year. And it really kind of solidified what I loved about the Reverend's switching options. It kind of put a lot of thoughts of trying to reacquire that Reverend to bed, because now I've found some options in production guitars that I already love that have that switching configuration, and they can be found as reasonably priced new instruments, which means if I'm feeling nostalgic about guitars, I could kind of obsess about other ones from my past. But that's another video, it's another story, and that's another guitar. Get to that later. But if one of these Reverends comes across my path, I might try to take a swing at it and see how good my memory is in comparison to having it in my hands. It'd be interesting to see if there's some sort of if the past just seems rosier than it really is. But I'd love to talk to you guys. I'd love to see if you've parted with an instrument, why'd you part with it? Why'd you buy it in the first place? And then why'd you part with it? Did you regret it? Were you able to reacquire it or get another one just like it? And did it live up to your memories of that particular instrument? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care.